them something to believe in. Never lost a fight, but I'm looking for a beat. In the food chain, I'm the one that eats you. If he ate my ass, he's a bottom feeder.
My name is Laurel Miranda, and with Jill Escher, we are welcoming you to an event we have called A Friend Like No Other. We came up with some other names that we can't really share with you. But I'm here today, and this is like the event none of us really wanted to attend, but really wanted to attend. I know you might have some mixed feelings about it. I certainly do. I've been wishing this day would never come because it kind of feels like after this event, you know, things will change for me personally. But I also want to really share, you know, I want to hear your experiences with Feda and Mu and come together as a community of special needs parents and people who support those people. One thought that I had this whole time as I was thinking about Feda and today, well, plus, you know, she dictated kind of like what my wardrobe would be today. Like, no, wear something, you know, more vibrant, Laurel. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. But I was also thinking that Feda's probably cursing Jill and me because she'd be saying, like, you guys are so boring. Like, why in the world did people put the two lawyers in charge of the party? So, you know, whenever Feda was at my house, she would try to take over the party, and she'd say, okay, we're going to do these games. I'd be like, no, we're not doing games. We're doing games. No, we're not doing games. So, of course, we're doing a game today in honor of Feda. So we have a name that caption, what is it?
Drag name.
The drag name and caption contest.
Oh, so what would Feda's drag name be? And the caption of her with the acupuncture needles in her face. So if you, and it's going to be, Jill and I are going to be judging your captions and your...
Leave them on the table.
Hi, my name is Christy. I went to high school with Feda. And, oh man, and I thought it was going to be okay. And then, so I basically grew up with her and then reconnected again with her as an adult. And I wasn't going to say anything, but she would look at me and be like, bitch, you're not going to say anything, you talk for a living. Like, get up there and say something first. Start it. So that's why I was like, okay, I got you, girl. Okay. So I just love the fact that that's something that she would say. And I just want to keep her friends and all of the families that she's helped in my prayers and thoughts, and her sisters especially. We all grew up together, so it's tough, but gosh, she was just so amazing, and I'm just glad to have known her, especially to reconnect with her as an adult too. So it's just cool, and I think this is a really awesome celebration, and she would really love this, especially the prizes. And I'm gonna come up with an awesome drag name. I might have to leave early, so I want to know who won. If I didn't win, I think I'm gonna win, but just in case.
So, you know, I've said a lot of very nice things about Feda in the past 2 weeks. And all of them were heartfelt. She was just one of the most amazingly remarkable, wonderful people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And it sort of surprised me. It took me by surprise. Like, I remember when I was first getting to know her, and it was like, you were married when? 17. You married your first cousin? You have 9 brothers and sisters? I'm like, and just like the craziness of the Feda world just like kept, you know, it kept kind of amazing me and stunning me, and I think she amazed me until the last day of her life. So anyway, I'm going to go through some things that maybe aren't so nice. One thing about Feda is that she just genuinely loved her friends so much. And Alicia and I were just talking about this. Like, she just had this incredibly bottomless well of love for her friends. And it wasn't like anyone was jealous. Like, oh, you're going to go see Alicia? Like, there was no limited supply of Feda love. It was an unlimited supply of Feda love. And but one thing I must say is she did love you more if you had a pool. Sorry, Laurel, Fred. Along those lines, she brought Muhammad over on his 13th birthday to our house, and this was in a phase where she was coming to our house a lot because, you know, we had a hot tub. And she said, you know what, it's Muhammad's birthday, you're going to get him an iPad. Okay? And you're going to get him unlimited data for life. Because it is his bar mitzvah. And guess what I did? I got him an iPad with unlimited data. Feda, there's so many things, I'm not going to go through all of them, but one thing I want to tell you is that, as you know, she was not above inviting herself everywhere. If something sounded interesting or cool, she wanted to be there, and I told her it was my 30th college reunion a couple years ago. And she's like, I'm coming! And she came with me to my 30th college reunion. She made more friends in my class than I ever had. And by the time it was over, she's like, well, now I can say I went to Stanford. Finally, this is a little bit serious. It's a little bit of Feda legacy. So very recently, I was in a position where I had to buy my son Jonathan a house. Things were getting very difficult with him. And we found this house. It's a big ranch house in San Jose, right off the Winchester exit, literally 1 minute off the Winchester exit. Big yard. And Feda came over. I wanted to show it to her and kind of talk about these plans, but not just to talk about the plans, because she was going to tell me what to do with the house. And she said that this was going to be Club Ott. Forget Johnny's house. This was Club Ott. And it was going to have a pool. It was going to have a hot tub. It was going to have a barbecue. It was going to have a little party area with seating where anyone with an autistic kid could come and bring their kids to swim. And I think one of the things I want to do in honor of Feda is actually create little Club Ott. You're all invited. It has to have a pool, of course. And I have an architect working on it already, so you'll be invited hopefully in a year or two. So
I couldn't think of what to say, but I am kind of known for writing epic birthday posts. And I did one for Feda's 40th. It's Feda and Mu's 40th birthday today. I can't believe I have a friend as young and as powerful as she is. If my other autism mom friends are mama warriors, Feda is the Steph Curry of our team. She's tall, she's young, she's mighty. When she's around her friends, she uses colorful language. And Feda gets shit done. Super important shit, like being a voice for us moms, and securing ABA services for kids in California through their health insurance, and making sure legislators at the state and national level know the plight of families who have special needs kids. She's also a proud Muslim, an incredibly supportive girlfriend, the best selfie taker I've ever met over the age of 16. She can also run up a down elevator in 4 seconds flat. Diane can tell the rest of that story. And she makes the best Middle Eastern food, my favorite kind that I've ever tasted. She's beautiful inside and out, and she's funny sometimes, and maybe even a little bit scary, but in a good way. I can't wait to celebrate with you this weekend. I probably shouldn't have written about what I found out on my Facebook post from someone else. She connected with all of us and she was a connector, and when she met up with other connectors and powerful women, she got things done. And I'm just so proud to have known her, to have called her my friend, and her story could so easily have been what happened, could have so easily happened in my home. And it didn't. And I'm having a hard time making sense of this, but we all celebrate her and how much she impacted everybody here and in the world. In the last weeks, and I'm sure we've all gone through this, some memories, some what ifs, some regrets. I wish I had done more. I wish I had gotten to know her better. And then
just yesterday, one of the what ifs I had was, you know, if I had known her in high school, it's interesting you're here, because I went, and it's a serious hypothetical because I'm 12 years her senior, Catholic school. I don't think so. But let's stretch it here. And so I went, what if I had known her? What if she had been in my school? And I concluded I would have loved her. I would have been a little intimidated, but I would have loved her. And you got to know, this Catholic girls' school, very, very strict, not a lot of wild children there. And I kind of made it my mission to, I made it my calling to make mischief. And insubordination was kind of the goal, but it was a lonely endeavor. And I was thinking, had she been there, what a great partner she would have been in crime. So that was just one little fleeting, kind of joyful thought, you know, just a nostalgic but joyful what if. Then I thought about one of the Azure Christmas concerts. Every year we would put on at Stanford we would put on these serious concerts for our autism families, and then every year there would also be a Christmas concert, and typically we would have Santa show up, big surprise, and it would be either Alex Krem from Camp Krem or Chris Costanza, the cello professor at Stanford, but they weren't available. So who do you think volunteered? Feda. Now, just picture, you know, hijab up, hat on, crooked beard on, and it was basically Feda in drag. It was jarring, it was hilarious, and it was surreal. And I was thinking, just today, if there were any kids sprinkled in the audience who were still on the fence about Santa being real, like she did the whole, boom, there you go, off the fence. This cannot be real. And so maybe some parents were grateful for her gesture, you know, that she did the job for us. Another fond memory is, you know, when Steve would play concerts, who would be in the first row, sitting there, but, you know, Jill and Feda. And you would always get the sense, I would kind of, at receptions after at a fundraiser or something, and you know, she'd be there, and you get this kind of, you feel this energy, this Feda energy, and you kind of go like, oh my God, you know, because she knew how to get a rise out of straight-laced Steve, who's kind of a Minnesotan at heart, even though he's from California, but his mom's Minnesotan, kind of straight-laced. So she would, like, at his birthday, totally just, he loved it, by the way, but he claimed he was shocked and shock and horror. And so there was always a sense for, is she going to be in that front row and drop an F-bomb right after the last note of Tchaikovsky Concerto? Is it going to be like, fuck yeah? But she didn't, but it would always be that energy, right? So she always kept us on our toes and definitely entertained. And then the last little thought was, my dad died 2 years ago, and it was his time. He was 95, but I was really close to him, and it pained me a lot more than I thought it would. And I didn't tell a lot of people, as sometimes we don't, just a little private pain. But she heard, probably through Jill or maybe through Steve. And this was, Feda just sent me, you know how sometimes when we hear secondhand, we don't know what to do. Do we write a note? We don't want to be. None of that with her. It was like straight. I know the minute she heard it, she sent me this text, and it was beautiful, and it was heartfelt, and it was so supportive and warm. It really made a big difference for me. And I think her impulsivity was, a lot of it was from mischief, but much stronger was her impulse to help. She would impulsively reach out and help people and never give it a second thought. And I'm immensely grateful for her, for having done that, not just for me, but I know she's done that for a lot of us.
Feda was that friend that I didn't quite get to be friends with yet. It was love at first sight, if you will. I'm wearing these earrings in her honor as I met her at that conference that you did, the autism one in San Francisco. I was going to say it's 2 years ago or so. And what an incredible speaker and energy, this force of energy she was. And I ran into her then in the bathroom and accosted her, and I said, oh my gosh, do you do this for a living? you have got so much energy, and we must get together for lunch, and we exchange some messages. And of course, you know, as we all get with kids like ours, we got busy and we did not make the connection. And her story is so it's so hard because it's probably, it could be any one of us. I mean, I would never leave my own daughter, of course. So I'm really heartbroken by her loss, and I just wanted to celebrate her life and wish she was with us longer. But it's heavy on all of our hearts, I think, when we recognize that, you know, that would have been any one of us. We wouldn't leave those kids that need us the most, and she certainly was that kind of person.
Well, Feda was a friend that someone that I would have wanted to know better. But I remember I got an invitation to her 40th birthday party, and I replied, "I'm sorry, I can't make it." And right away I received this, "Bitch, what do you mean? You don't know my, you hit, what did she say? You hit my weak point. You gotta come." And I felt so bad. I mean, this woman I barely knew, and I was invited to a 40th birthday party, and so I said, okay, I did change everything that I had, and I went. And I am so, if I was sitting here and I would have remembered that, you know, it was so much fun. And I got to celebrate her, and I got to see the beauty closer of that incredible woman who touched us. And I felt also that, you know, even though I didn't know her that well, that it was a connection that she had with all of us, that even though she touched, I mean, it was like right to the heart. It wasn't this, "Oh, I like you," it was like right to the heart. And I just learned so much from that. The vulnerability that she had was amazing, and I think that that's what made her heart so big, is that open vulnerability. And I learned so much from that woman with the little that I knew her.
I knew Feda long. Kristen probably knew her as long, and the friend from high school, you knew her, and then you didn't, and then you knew her again. I knew her. I met her in 2007, and we've been friends since. Is anybody else?
Well, we met on the same day.
Yes, I know.
All of us all met.
I know. So it really isn't. It's interesting because she made friends very quickly, and then Alicia came in kind of early on. Like, I'm trying to think, who have I known over the years? And it's been interesting. Like, you've been friends with her probably like 8, 10 years. Anyway, yeah, so 2007, I met her the same day Kristen did. We met at an autism town hall, the Blue Ribbon Commission on Autism. And I think it was 2007.
I think
was
it
the
was
end.
2006, at the end of 2006.
So that's what David Garcia said. But Muhammad would only have been like a year then.
It was. I mean,
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. He was diagnosed really early.
Yeah.
Remember? She's like
18
damn it,
months. He
tell
was
me
born
what's
in
wrong with
November.
me.
All right, maybe it was 2006. Wow. Okay. So so I did know her well, and she was a lot of fun. She was like, I was kind of the straight person to her comic routine. In some ways, you had to like calm your ego down. And it wasn't like she had a big ego that she was full of herself. She was just a lot of energy and a lot of attention, and in a good way. And she touched people in very meaningful ways. Like, she would share her stories, and she wasn't afraid to. And it inspired openness among other people. And so other people were okay to share their stories too. And she made it okay. And she wore a lot of her heart on her sleeve on the outside. And so people, she was out there. She put herself out there to people and connected. She could work a room, like as Jill has said, make friends in under 30 seconds, make a best friend for life in under 30 seconds. When she died, we've had, we used to have parties at our house, and every single person that was even in the room at the party, at the time, they were like, oh, I remember your friend Feda. Oh, I'm I heard from all sorts of people over time. Nobody forgot her. She made a real impression on people. And maybe part of it was that, I don't have a lot of headscarf wearing, hijab wearing Muslim friends, and that might have been part of it, so that she was noticed. But her personality was strong, and she was there. So I've often thought of her a lot in the last couple of weeks. I thought of how she died and how she was always so dramatic, and this was like a tragic opera. The way she died, it was like, oh my God, and it made news in South Africa and London. There were news reports on the internet of her dying. And so, it was almost like Princess Diana, in the autism world, rocked and shocked by her death. And somebody was interviewed, I think it was Elton John at the time of her death, and he said that he thought he heard her saying, oh, this couldn't be for me. And I think Feda would have felt that way too. This couldn't be for me, but it is, and it was, and she touched so many lives, and so many people really, she spoke to us. I'm trying to think of what else. Well, in the last, couple of days, and I don't know if this is real or not, I almost felt like a certain settling in, I was in sort of a shock for a few weeks, and now it's sort of settling in, and I also wonder if, Feda is settling in, where she is. She believed in an afterlife. I'm pretty sure she did. And so I think that she's settling in too. And I think that, maybe she's clerking for RBG. Maybe RBG needed some help, up there. And, the rules are off. You don't need to go to law school up there to be a judge. But anyway, I still feel connected to her. And when I saw her 2 weeks ago, she was saying, I feel really loyal to you. When I hear somebody saying something bad about you, my dander goes up. And I'm like, hey, you can keep looking out for me. So I'll take it. Okay, thank you.
So I met Feda that same day that Karen met her. I met them both, and we were speaking at a hearing. And I was just like, who is this person? She had such a presence. And I'm like, the same with Karen. I'm like, I need to get to know these women. And that's how the three of us teamed up and started on our journey. And what I appreciated so much about Feda was that she was I think she was the front man, and she had two straight people behind her, kind of not, wanting to be in the limelight. And I really appreciated how she shared her stories and was willing to talk. And we would be writing stuff in the car, we'd be driving to Sacramento, and she was always the one who was asked to speak because she was a parent who could tell her story, and she was willing to tell her story, and she was such a great speaker. She had the room. Anytime she would speak, she would just command it. I also got the same text about, bitch, you are coming to my fucking 40th birthday party. And I was like, no, you really don't understand. I really can't come to your 40th birthday. And she's like, you are absolutely coming. And my son and I had an argument about it because I'm like, no, actually, I really have to go. And he's like, no, it's not okay. She can't do this. You can't go. And I was like, no, I'm going. And I went. And we already had another argument because I told him, I'm like, I would be going in to get any one of you. And we got in a big argument. He's like, you would not. I would be holding you back. I would be going in. And I was like, but just to think of that and to think of her and what she did. And the thing about her is, no matter what happened, if things were the worst,
that's when you could call her, right? When I lost my son, the first person I called was Feda. And we found him, and she was screaming on the phone with me. You know, but whatever the best news or the worst news, she was always there. And she would call me at 3 in the morning. And she's like, I found Mu in the trash, right? He's gone, or he's back, or whatever. But like that bond that a lot of autism moms have, right? She had that with so many of us, where she was the person who we would call, and we were the person that she would call. And it's just a special bond that we all have, and we're gonna miss her so much. But she would be thrilled with the amount of attention that her passing got. She really would, and it's kind of all come around. This was owed to her. She would say, this was owed to me. This is what I did. She always talked about karma. And when we were doing really big things and trying to do really big things and we weren't going to stop, she's like, they are going to try to get us, and they're going to try to make bad shit happen in our lives, and we're not going to let it stop us. And so she just had something else that she needed to do now, and I don't know exactly yet what it is. I don't know when we'll find out, but the shit happens for a reason, and she's not going to let it stop her, and none of us are going to let it stop us. So we will just continue her legacy forever.
And it just felt like the right time for me to get up. I know that Feda had such an impact on so many people from a friendship perspective and all the wonderful things that her leadership brought to our community, but I don't know the details of it. I missed getting to hear her talk at the conference, which I was very upset about, but I had to be manning a desk or something like that. But Karen and Kristen, it sounds like the three of you were the ones who kind of came together and led a lot in terms of getting ABA through insurance. Is that right? Is that the story that I'm piecing together? So I want to say one of the things Feda did was to bring us together here today in a not the way we had expected, but I have a son who turned 21 on Saturday, and he's still getting 13 hours of ABA a week. And our lives would be upside down without that. And not only did that make a difference in terms of just on the surface, but he had to leave Morgan Autism Center a year ago, February, because his behaviors were so aggressive. And he was at our home for 6 months. Fast forward a year later, he is now living with supported living in a house in Mountain View, still getting ABA. So I just want you guys to know that the impact that you've had and that Feda had, it's really, really palpable. It's really, really real. And while I didn't know Feda really well, I so wish I knew her as well as many of you do. I have two memories of interacting with her. One was at the hockey game that the Autism Society sponsored for people who supported the society. And I remember talking to Feda, and there was something that we disagreed on. Like, I wanted to share my perspective with her, and I was so impressed with what a great listener she was. Like, I thought she would kind of like argue with me, and instead we just had a really deep conversation that was really impressive. And then the other way I felt like I got to know her is that she threw a surprise party for Jill at her house, which a number of you were at. This was about a year and a half ago, is that right? And it was the most remarkable, fun party with all women I had ever been to. We walked in and we made little flowers, for her hair. We played this really embarrassing game. There was a chocolate fountain. And we were having so much fun. The only thing is I made a huge mistake. I brought a bottle of wine, only to find out that was not appropriate. And I was so impressed, too, that we had so much fun and didn't even have to drink any alcohol. We were just giddy, and I could drive home super safely. So yeah, Feda just touched so many of us, and I just want to thank, acknowledge not just what she did, but what all of you did together with her.
I became Feda's friend when I got into one of her selfies from behind, and just kind of drawn to her like a, what do they say, not a fly, a moth to a flame, and then just like, wow, she's amazing. She's she's got so much energy. I want to know her. And then I think, Karen, I was trying to remember, I spoke after her at some small, in San Bruno or something.
Yes, it was Gate Path.
Was it a Gate Path or Parka? Yeah, it was Parka, I think.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you and I were there, and she spoke first, and I'm like, are you gotta be kidding me? Are you kidding me? Right? So she's up there. Oh my God, no, nothing like her though, right? Because she walks around and high five. She's like a rock star. So she puts up on her screen her name and the comma LLE. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And I'm like, shit, bitch.
Oh, yeah.
What did you do? What did you go get? Something, you're like, do you ever sleep? And she said, oh, that's for lots of life experience. And I said, can I take it? And she's like, you got it. Yeah, you take it. So I've been wanting to do business cards with that. I love that. But I hope in her memory that we'll carry on. We have to, you know, not one of us is Feda, but all of us together, right? So,
about 3 or 4 months ago. Over the summer, my wife realized that with all the public pools closed, that there was nothing for many parents to do, as we had very little for us to do. And we have a pool in the backyard that has an easy entrance. So she started inviting friends and acquaintances to come over and use the pool. We wouldn't even be there. Keep it safe that way. And Jill started using it, and Feda would come over. Kate knew Feda a little bit, you know, just not as a friend, just as someone we see in the community. As the summer went by, we started sitting out in the backyard, 6 feet away, talking, and so both of us got to know Feda pretty quickly. And it was stunning that, you know, she's bold and she's brash, clearly energetic and outgoing and generous, inappropriate in a way that shows love and shows joy. She would make fun. She's Muslim, I'm Jewish. She would make fun of that in a million ways. She quickly started calling me white boy, talking about white boy food. But she also, when Mark, my son, said something nice about me, she also started calling me a world's best autism dad. So you get both sides of it. And I realized I could call her brown girl back, and that would keep the fun going. There were some, in what I knew of her, there were some hints of the accomplishments, but I didn't really know the suing Kaiser, the getting the law for ABA. But there was it was clear she had accomplished a lot. It was much more clear how she was such a good and outgoing friend. But there was another thing that I saw in Feda, which is she was not a cartoon superstar. She was not invincible. In fact, she showed some vulnerabilities, some insecurities. And what was intriguing, I noticed that she would say negative things about herself. Not all the time, but enough that you would notice it. And it was noticeable that she was doing this. And so that led to our having a number of, Kate and I and her having a number of long conversations where, you know, she talked about how she came by that legitimately. But what I saw that was so intriguing and what makes her death now so sad is she was addressing that in her life with the same boldness, with the same energy when she was addressing everything else. And that was a beautiful thing to see. And also, you know, with all of us who try to do big and important things, I think it's easy to look at Feda as, you know, you can't be her. The energy, the everything. But it's not because she didn't have demons or difficulties, but because she could work with them. And so to the extent that all of us have those too. I like to remember all of that together. And she will be very much missed. It's very sad.
I'm a crybaby, so I'm prepared. I met Feda about 5 years ago. And what was special to me is that for some reason, 5 years ago, I was fighting breast cancer. And she reached out to a mutual friend and said, you know what, I want to meet this Diane Tackerberry. I have no idea why. But so our mutual friend said, yeah, you know, Diane's up for it. I wasn't really up for it. I mean, I was like in the middle of chemo. I had no hair. I had no energy. Not the time I really wanted, I didn't feel like socializing, but Feda is out there, right? So shows up at my house with Lisa Valerio as our mutual friend. And she's got everything. She's got the head wrap, you know, she's got the plans. We're going to San Francisco. I'm like, okay. So she comes in like, you know, she's got her head wrap. She head wraps me, and Lisa is left out. So Lisa's like, okay, I want to wear a head wrap too. So we're all wearing like hijabs, and I'm all pale. So the other skill that Feda had was like she could put the eyeliner on, like someone else mentioned. You know, she put some color in my face and hopped into her minivan and went to San Francisco. We showed up at this tapas restaurant, you know, and this is the first time I'd really met Feda, and I'm meeting her at like my most vulnerable time, you know. But somehow I just felt comfortable with her. I felt safe with her. And the thing that she had planned for us that night was a comedy club. You know, she loved to laugh. So we go to this comedy club, and we're all sitting there, and the comedian was great. I can't remember his name exactly, but the last story that he shared was a story about cancer, about like he was like on some beach, and he had approached this lady, and she didn't have any hair or something, you know, like, and then he said, you know, then her friends came running and rallying up around her and were like, she has cancer, you know, and how he felt terrible. And he was like, you know what, that just like made me, you know, just a reminder for everyone here, you know, appreciate your time, appreciate your friends. And that was like his last message of the night. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like destiny, you know? So we walk outside and we're just looking at the stars. I'm like, oh my God, this was such a special night. It's like magical. And Feda's like, well, do you want to meet the comedian? I'm like, okay. So of course we go marching in there. She makes it happen, you know. And it was just like a highlight memory of my time going through chemotherapy. But so the other funny thing about that night is, like, we're in her minivan, and of course with how busy she is, she's like running out of gas. So I'm in the passenger seat, and Lisa's in the back, and so we're like in San Francisco in the dark, not really knowing where we're going, looking for a gas station. We finally see a gas station. We're like getting there, and all of a sudden she ran out of gas. She's like, okay, you guys, get out, push the van. So I'm like, okay, and I get out, and I'm like pushing the van. Lisa's not getting out. I have no idea why. And I'm like pushing, you know, and I had to push it up the driveway thing, and I could see Feda going like this, like, push it more, you know. So finally, I get in there. We get, you know, up by the gas thing. And then I'm like, oh, my God, Lisa, why didn't you come out? She goes, Feda had it on child lock. I couldn't get out, you know. So, you know, it was just like, that was just such a fun night of meeting Feda for the first time. And of course, like, you know, once you meet Feda, she's like, come on, go to this, come on, go to that, you know. So of course I went to some law advocacy thing with my cap on, you know. But I've been thinking about, like, you know, what Feda has taught me. And
You know, so like there's three like things I thought of that like I can learn from her. And one is to be bold, you know, because you guys mentioned that. She is bold. I mean, she just does what she wants to do and she goes for it. And to be you and be authentic. I mean, she was who she was. And unapologetically so, she was. And to just show up. You know, be bold, show up, go for it. And because she's an extrovert, you know, she did it. I'm an introvert. I'm a little bit not as bold as she is. The second thing is, and I'm definitely, this is the way I roll, is I'm always like too busy, you know, so don't be too busy. Like with Feda, like she would reach out to me or, you know, and she was never seemed like she was ever too busy for a friend. You know, because people reach out to me and I'm like, oh my God, I've been so busy. You know, I get stuck in my crap, you know. And she last reached out to me in March, right before the pandemic. And she's like, okay, yeah, let's go to a comedy club again. She goes, I'm going to put you in charge. You just let me know when, you know. So, of course, like, never too busy, you know, never made me feel like she was unavailable. But, of course, then the pandemic happened. And so, you know, we missed that opportunity to do our little comedy club thing. And also, this is also, I'm guilty of this, is don't let distance be a barrier to friendship. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, he lives all the way, you know, in Fremont. It's kind of far for me. You know, I'm learning. Number 3 is live large. You know, she put a lot of life in her years. And then I read something the other day about how time is an unrenewable resource. You know, we only have so much time. And never in my wildest dreams would I have thought, like, you know, this year is my 5-year survival for cancer. And I would have never thought that I would outlive Feda. So, you know, I miss her, and I just wish that, you know, we could have hung out one more time. Thank you.
Just it feels good to be part of our autism mom community, and she represented that to me. One of the things that I love the most about Feda is she stood up when things were wrong, and she would say, please cover your ears. Fuck that shit. And I just want to say that about this. Fuck that shit. I brought my shirt for Feda. Fuck that shit. She shouldn't have died. And I wish she was here.
Hi, I'm Tracy. Well, Chu Bullock on Facebook. Just Bullock. In other ways. Wow. So I've known of Feda for many years, and then, like, who doesn't? I think most people have known of Feda for many years before, yeah, you really get to know her. So, I don't know, I think maybe just to ease into this, I was just looking at my last text from her, which I'll have to keep. I will say that I'd say we started getting closer and closer over the years as I got to know her, and then especially as I saw her more when I joined the board of SFASA. And so, okay, just recently, Tuesday, September 1st, she goes, "Hi Tracy, it's Feda. When are we set up a Zoom or FaceTime call to talk SFASA business?" And I don't know, I was just, you know, busy. I like her. She has 3 kids, right? And then I have 2 kids, both on either end of the spectrum, like she does, right? On either end of the spectrum. And that's, I think, how we really kind of connected that way. And so I was just really busy, and I thought she wanted to know when the meeting was. And so I said, "Hi, Feda, it's September 15th at 11 a.m. Do you want me to forward the emails to you? Did you not get them?" And she goes, "I know that." I mean, I can hear her say, like, "I know that, you know, bitch. I wanted to have a side conversation with you." I'm like, "Oh, but what?" like I thought, am I in trouble? Because she'll be very straightforward with, her thoughts. And she goes, wow, okay, on how to help the board get back on track. And, I wanted to see if you would be interested in helping. Plus, I wanted to talk about some other things. I have no set plans. Some text, I'm sure she has some text typos and stuff like that, because she's like, if you got a text from her, she's doing 100 things mile an hour. And then I said, oh, alrighty, you just want a piece of me. And she goes, who wouldn't? That's one thing. It was always easy to joke with her, I mean, yeah, and even back when I didn't know her as well, it was just so easy to do that and reciprocate. I'm kind of like her in a way that, I mean, for me, it takes a while. I mean, I get to know you first, and I feel like, okay, it's you're laid back enough, and I can be easy with you, then sure, okay, I'll start swearing. And so with me and her, it was easy to do that. And Jill. Jill, we could, us three, it's like rated R. And then I said, what's a good time? She said, I want you to help me brainstorm, whatever. I go nowhere, I do nothing, I'm dead on the inside. I'm like, okay. And I said, you're extra famous with your podcast gig. And she goes, I can't even listen to him. Hashtag not kidding. So she had a lot of hashtags. And so even though she was very bold and everything, she was also very modest about herself. And that's what I really liked about her, just one of the many things I really liked about her. Anyway, so it was then September 10th at 8:34 p.m. when we had our last hour and a half conversation or so, and we didn't just talk business. We talked a lot about personal stuff. Since we had I had that moment to have Feda to myself and have a conversation with her. I asked her about, how she feels with her, recent divorce, and I thought, hey, I was just trying to bring out the positive things. It's like, say, well, it must be liberating, how's a dating scene going on, and some of us know about her online app dates and stuff like that. And she quickly got very graphic with me. I'm like, okay, it must be going well. Yeah. And there were talk about UTIs and stuff. I'm like, okay, how through a screen do you get that? You can have the most hilarious conversations with her if, you kind of let her in, Well, I guess if you don't let her in, she's going to barge into your space. You're just going to get the honest truth with her. But at the same time, in that conversation with her, thinking about how things were, what's really sad for me was she was in the midst of, changing her life, just had the divorce. She was just really happy, about that part. She had a gastric bypass, and she was feeling really great about her body and stuff. Just everything. It felt like she was just getting so liberated. And so I was like, yeah, I was just trying to egg her on. I was like, yeah, dating scene, and just, and she's, yeah, I'm just so happy. But at the same time, I felt a little sadness behind her voice. So I was so glad that, at least around that time, it seemed like she was really reaching out to a lot of us. And so I'm really grateful that she had that. She had all of us to really reach out to. And I see a lot of head noddings because it's kind of reassuring for me to know that she had all the support. And she knows it. And she knew it, when I heard about her passing, I'll just read this because I don't know. So when I heard, I said, I'm still in disbelief. My heart has been in pain and my eyes are sore from crying since I found out about Feda and Mu's passing this morning. It was just 2 weeks ago that we had our 1.5 hour video chat. And I think for some of us, she didn't just speak over the phone or just text, but she liked to FaceTime, She'd like to see you. That's it. Most people that I know is like, oh my God, you text or you're calling me. What's up? I do text first, right? But But she was like, no, I'm going to FaceTime you. I want to see you in the face. And she, gathered your vibe through all that. So we just got to have a deep personal chat, just the two of us. I feel honored when she called me her bitch. I loved it. I can still hear her endearing greeting. Hey, bitch! I love her honest and sincere brashness. It was her intense passion shining through. It was her feisty passion for assertively advocating for her son Mu, Muhammad, other families like hers, and mine living with severe autism. Mu drove her passion, and she used it to make impactful change for the community. You repeatedly hear how big her personality was, how feisty she was, and how passionate she was, because she really was, and it was contagious. She made you want to join her in her quest to advocate for families, especially those living with severe autism. I still can't believe just how recent we had that conversation, and I'm so glad I got to tell her how amazing she and Jill and her other friends are at advocating and all the work they do. She was modest with her response, and at the same time she gave me pointers about being a strong advocate, as if training me to follow in her footsteps. I took it to heart because she was definitely a mentor to me. She and Jill and her other friends. It's still too fresh that I saw and heard her at our SFASA board meeting earlier this week. I cry as I write this post because I and the autism community has lost a wonderful woman and her dear son. I lost a family member of this sisterhood of autism mothers fighting the same fight, taking care of our families, advocating for our children and community with autism, and living our lives with the same agenda. Feda was definitely a leader in the arena. I hope she's up there resting in peace with Muhammad, knowing that her sisterhood will continue the fight she fought so well down here. I love you, and I miss you, Feda and Muhammad, you big bear. Avery's heart is broken as well. And yes, he's Avery with the brown hair. We're so glad we got to swim with you and Mu every weekend over the summer. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think, I didn't know her as long as some of you have, and the thing is, I feel like even if you didn't know her very well, you kind of did, right? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Thanks to everyone being her friend. I mean, it's just a part of her, and now she gets to live on through all of us. Thanks.
If Feda had a drag name, what would it be? And the answer is Jill.
And when Feda came on the scene and I saw Jill and Feda together, life was never the same after that. Some of the memories I have with Jill is she had planned a girls' weekend, and everything was always a surprise. You didn't know what was going to happen. I think she liked that, That was the drama, right, that she created around everything. So we ended up at Jill's house in Santa Cruz.
It was a surprise girls' weekend that was going to be at my house. I was never consulted about it, but it was going to happen, right?
Then there was this fantastic, very, very expensive lunch that we had. And then we had another really fun event that we did. But at the end, she had Jill's credit card. And that was the best part, because Jill wouldn't throw that together, right? It had to be her. So yeah, that was great. That was it. And I always kind of remember her cooking, and it was always chopping with those knives. She loved those knives. They gave her some power, right? And it was I think she just loved to cook because that was her way of showing love to everyone, right? Cooking is love. And I remember one time she was kind of mad at Mu and had those knives, and she was practically going to chase him, and I'm just like, ah! That was in Jill's backyard, another crazy time. So anyway, I'm going to close with this little poem that I have. It says, how can I find the words to describe Feda? F is for friend. E is for everything, because she was everything. Everything. D is for damning autism, and she did damn autism with all of her strength. A was for another F-bomb, which also kept us laughing at the same time while she was damning autism. She was a true friend, a lover of life, a lover of the fight, a dreamer with a march so strong it shifted the world to another place, a place we never knew. Her life touched our hearts and souls and left us so completely sad. It hit us all at once, like the rippling effect she had on the world. So deep, life stopped as we knew it. I give you her strength, that the pieces of our hearts will be glued together, and with time we can come together in her memory stronger than before.
So I don't know how I can add more to everybody who's, I've been crying in the back there. But I think I'll just add a few of my own. Somebody said earlier that she was safety and vulnerability and connection. Those are some of the words that come to mind. You know, I think we all have really hard days on this journey, and we have to be able to share it. The burden has to be shared, and Feda just knew that. You know, it wasn't like she was like our sister. She knew we had to share, and sometimes it was uncanny because I didn't know her as well as Jill, and I knew her from the board and got to know her, thankfully, in the last 3 years or so. But somehow she just knew when there was a down day. And all of a sudden there was my birthday maybe 3 or 4 years ago where she just showed up at my door with bath salts and this wonderful chest that I still have. I almost brought it today. And wanted me to relax, wanted me to take some time, take care of myself. And another time that was kind of around my birthday, we must go to Dish Dash in Sunnyvale. I live in Sunnyvale, so I was like, okay, I can go there. I'd love to meet you there. And I had not really been there with anybody who could choose the food like she could, and I just felt so cherished. I felt so loved those days when Feda brought me up out of wherever I was, right? I was just not able to do it myself. So she was a warm hug. And then the humor, of course, that a lot of us have talked about. That escape room was just a blast. Then times when we just connected on things like the oils. She liked lavender oils, and for a while was putting oil into Mu's drinks to help him calm down. I mean, we'll do anything, right, to help our kids calm down. You know, discussions about medical marijuana, all of that with her. And anyway, she came to an oils party in my community in Sunnyvale. And it was just so funny because the woman was saying, oh, you're only supposed to take a couple of those vials, you know, and fill up a few samples. And she was like, what? You know, it's sort of like you're limiting the number of samples. And I didn't know this woman that well either. It was a friend of her friend. I mean, mainly it was like, you girls don't have that much going on, right? You know, like, I really need these samples. Because most of them probably didn't have the kids we have. So, but just, I think what I've thought about and hoping that her legacy lives on in
all of us. And really, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the full moon was rising during this tragedy, and I kept on thinking about that, and then I found the quote, "Your absence has gone through me like a thread through a needle. Everything I do is stitched with its color." And I found a picture of a full moon, and I think she's with me in that moon, in that rising, to be a better person always, to love like she did, to love my son as fiercely as she did her son. I was hoping to celebrate. She came to James's 18th birthday party at Buca de Beppo, which was somewhat of a calamity, but it was just so great to see her. And Mu was there with a couple of his aides, and he loved the food. The food was kind of an issue, anyway, but he loved it. And I was hoping to celebrate her son's 18th birthday in a while, but I just. Again, one other thing. My husband is very reserved, especially these days. He's like on the ultra risk averse, schema of things with COVID. And last year at our holiday party, he didn't want to go, and I had just gotten out of a little minor surgery. And she got him on the phone and said, "Miguel, you are coming to Autism on Tap. Get in the car." He was there, and I had a great picture.
I was wondering why he was there.
I know, he was smiling. He was having a great time. And so even Feda could even get someone as reserved as my husband out without me. She's just irreplaceable, as we've all said, but her memory lives on, for sure.
I was going to be selfish. I just wanted to hear everybody's stories and leave. It's hard for me to speak about Feda, and So a few things. I love being here and hearing all these stories. Feda was always too much for me, but she didn't seem to be have any limit for anybody here. So the other way around, I don't even know how you would describe that. She had so much, you couldn't get enough of any of us, right? Even though we were like, "Oh my God, it's Feda again. What do you need?" You know what I mean? How did you know I was up with Henry at 2:30 in the morning? She's all, "Bitch, I'm up too." So, so that kind of stuff with Feda is we'll always. I don't have any other female or male friends in my life that could possibly be as love Tupac as much as I do, come over and bring Jose Cuervo and drink till she can't drive. She's like, "Girl, let's just stay at your beach house." So that kind of stuff is never going to happen again, and I don't think it's quite settled in, because I actually sent a text to her a week ago telling her how ridiculous all of this is, because I needed to do that, because that's how I communicate. I don't call people on the phone. I'm limited in my time, and quite frankly, my emotions. I just don't have enough bandwidth to give to people. So that's hard, knowing that piece is forever gone. I'm grateful for all that she has given me. I'm grateful that she brought all of you great people together. I think you're all so unique, and I think we're all very different and very similar, because disability it's a hard one to deal with. But I love the fact that she's brought all of us together, and I'm sorry I'm an ugly crier. She's told me that. I heard that she's told other people this, but I think I'm the ugliest crier here. But really, I love that everybody's so willing to share very intimate stories about her, and I appreciate that, because I'm still not done crying about her. So hearing all of these, I remember them, think of them, and know that I wasn't alone in knowing how special she was. And I know that all of you worked with her at some point, it seemed like, in the capacity of autism. I didn't. I had no desire to do any of that. I'm really maxed out with just my own stuff. And I've always admired that with Feda. She had so much going on all the time, but always had enough time to keep advocating. And that was impressive and exhausting, and I loved it. So anyway, thanks for calling me out. And I'm sorry that I'm rambling, but I really do appreciate all of your stories. Thanks for having me.
We love you, Leah.
Yes.
I've known Feda for probably about, I don't know, a long time. 12 years. We would all congregate at a playgroup when our kids were young. And we'd use each other for support. It was a safe place. I'm also an introvert. I would have never gotten up here to speak, but I would be behind Feda, and she would always try to encourage me. Come on, girl, get up. This is not me. She's done so much for us. My son also gets ABA, and he's grown just tremendously because of it. She also, her husband owned a store in East Palo Alto where I live with my family, and I want to say like 20 years ago it was quite dangerous, and Feda, she knew all the gangsters there. She knew them, and they're fond of her too. They remember her, the girl with the job. Yeah. When I posted on my Facebook, some of my husband knows them all, said, Feda, oh no! They shared with me their sympathy. I'm going to miss her and Mu. He always had a great big smile, always gave me a great big hug. And I do think that we need to carry on her advocacy in her behalf and make time to be there. Like she would want us to.
I've been trying to think of a story that I could share, or their texts that I'd love to post that I can't share. But I was just sitting here thinking about last November, Mu turned 15. And Feda invited, there were a total of 6 of us, to Mu's quinceañera. So the thought of 6 young men who very, very high needs autism going to that party didn't really sound like a really fun afternoon. But, Feda called and you go. And what was even more amazing to me is the makeup of the group. And I keep coming back to this, ladies. I keep coming back to it. 3 of the moms were Jewish. Feda. And then the other 2, we have a staunch Catholic and a Southern Baptist from Arkansas. Again, it doesn't sound like it would go together. And we had such a fantastic afternoon. The boys socially distanced beautifully. They all got along together by not being near each other. Whereas all the moms, we huddled and talked about everything but autism and had a great time. But I keep coming back to 3 Jewish women, 2 Christian women, and a Muslim woman. And I just felt, and Feda is my only Muslim friend. And Muslims have such a negative connotation in our society here in the U.S. And I keep coming back to her and thinking about how we all sat together and how, to me, thanks to Feda, there was peace, because she showed what we all want. We all just want to be together, take care of our families, and have peace and love.
Every single one of my siblings know her, and just immediately fell in love with her. My children loved her, my dad, oh my gosh. And Feda, I do love hearing everybody's story, because it just reiterates what an awesome human being she was. She was amazing to all of us. She was a great friend to all of us. I never felt, you know, just like Joe was saying, she just had so much to give that, you know, she made me feel like I was her only friend in the world, right? And she was just so great, so amazing. And she had so much love, and she always gave that to me unconditionally. No matter what time I called her, no matter what the problem was, she was always there. She always answered the phone for me. And I know not everybody got that, you know. If I called or texted, she would, or if she couldn't, she would say, "Bitch, is this an emergency?" You know. She'd always call me back. But she also left me such beautiful memories, right? Some of them I can't share, but she got me in so much trouble. She got me in so much trouble. And how many of you guys went to the movies with her? Okay. Well, I've never experienced going to the movies in such a way until I went with Feda, right? And one of the first times that I went with her, we did it while our kids, my son Pablito, and Mu went to the big school together. So that was a perfect time for us to have some alone time and go to the movies. So she would always have everything planned out. She had which movie we were going to watch because I did not know how to pick movies, so she had to be the one that would pick the movie. But before we went to the movie, she said we're going to go grab a bite to eat. For me, that meant that we're going to go probably have lunch somewhere, and then we'll go to the movies. She also took me for the very first time to this Mexican taqueria called the Pericos or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's in Santa Cruz. And she's like, okay, we're going to order. So she ordered a burrito, and she liked it a special way. She had told the guy taking our order, which was also the owner, I believe, how she wanted it cooked, right? She wanted it to be cooked very well, but not burnt. And she wanted him to chop onions in there and jalapenos in the mix. And I'm like, Feda, you're kind of basically telling him how to redo his entire thing, you know? She's like, just shut up, just let me handle it. Anyway, she ordered it, but, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody by saying this, but this is Feda. She's talking to the guy, and we had been there before, and she's like, this time, okay, don't be a faggot and make sure that you put meat in it this time. Because last time, you were really skimpy on that. I was like, what the hell? I was really upset and was really offended. So, you know what? I have never offended you in any way. And she immediately changed her composure. She was like, I was kidding. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. He just wouldn't let down. And this is just a Mexican straight man, and that's just kind of something you don't say to a Mexican straight man, right? Because they get really offended. And I just didn't know. She looks at me, she says, bitch, you're not going to come in here again, is he? We're never going to be able to come in here again. And I said, I went into Spanish mode. I started talking to him in Spanish. I said, you know what, I'm so sorry. Please forgive my French. She didn't mean to, you know, she just was just kidding. That's just her, the way she is. And you know what? But he wasn't calming down at all. So I didn't know what to do because she's like, we have to be able to come here again. I don't want to be banned from coming into this place again. She loved it. So I'm like, you know what, please forgive her. She just forgot to take her medication. As I said that, he calmed down, you know, he immediately calmed down, and it was a totally different story. And she's like, bitch, what'd you tell him? I told him you forgot your medication. You forgot to take your medication. She started laughing, just busting out laughing. I love that. Oh my God, that's awesome. So that's just one of the things but that wasn't the end of it. After this, I discovered that we were not meant to have our lunch there, you know. She packed it all up, and she was insisting that I also get a burrito, but I did not want a burrito. I wanted tacos, and so she ordered my tacos. She's like, okay, bitch, I guess you're going to have your tacos, right? So she had her burrito, I had my tacos. She packed them all up, and I was expecting that we were going to go park somewhere and eat, right, and then go to the movies. But no, she packed it all in this bag. She didn't even attempt to hide it. and we're gonna take drinks, we're gonna take these tacos, we're gonna have chips, we have like at least 5 different types of salsas that we have in this bag. And I'm like, Feda, what are you doing? Like, we're gonna go and watch the movie and we're gonna eat. I'm like, there's no way you're gonna be able to take all that in there. Are you kidding me? Watch them stop me. I don't know. Nobody said anything. We were able to go in there, have our picnic in the movie, have our food, and enjoy it. And there was actually attendants that came in and checked it out, and it was fine. Nobody was going to say anything to Feda, right? So that's just one of the stories and things that she made me do that I never thought I would ever do.
Tell the Will story really fast.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Also, she's very supportive of my kids and their sports, and she often came to William's baseball games, football games. And one of these times, it was in the San Jose area, and after that, my dad was with us as well. She decided that we were all going to go eat at this really nice restaurant that she knew, and so we headed over there. But when we got there, we discovered that the wait was 45 minutes, an hour long, or something like that. And she's like, "We're not going to wait that long. We can't wait that long. It's ridiculous." I was like, "Okay, what are you going to do, William? You're gonna be autistic." And William's like, "Okay." He didn't really think that or knew what that meant, so he just kind of went along with it. But she actually went up to the restaurant, to the host, and let them know that we could not wait, that we had a severely autistic child with us, that there's no way he was going to be able to wait, and he needed to seat us right away. I don't know what else but she said that. So we were in there in 15 minutes or less, and William was given these 3 sticks because William's like, "What are you talking about? How am I supposed to be autistic?" And easy, just do what your brother does. Fine. So handed him 3 sticks. My son likes to stem on straws. He calls them, we call them sticks though. But handed him 3 straws, and he is playing with these sticks throughout the whole dinner. And they actually kept up this whole scenario throughout the entire dinner. So when our waiter would come up, she's like, "You're fine, just calm down, just settle down. Bring him a steak. I think he needs a steak. Bring him a steak." It was crazy. William does such a better job of telling the story. But yeah, that's another of the crazy stories that we had with Feda. It's just so sad. I can't really, it all really seems unreal to me still. I haven't been able to cope with the fact that I just lost such a great friend. I don't want to accept that. It just doesn't seem possible, right? Such a bright light, both her and Mu, that they could possibly really be gone, but they are, and I just know that she is rejoicing in heaven, and I think that she's somehow channeling through me, because there's no way I would have actually gotten up here and spoken, but I could hear her say, "Bitch, you better get up here and say something." But I loved her dearly, and I'm going to miss her dearly, and I've also been, texting her, and just can't.
Well, I think many of the people who I've heard, and I came a little late, have already spoken about a lot about what Feda was like and wild escapades that she would take you on. Quite frankly, I'm surprised she would take you out to eat before the movies, because she would always, and really, we would go to the movies with both our sons. My son is almost the same age as Muhammad was, and she would come with bags and bags and bags of food and boxes and dump them out, and as Alicia said, no one would ever say anything, and they must have known her. And I think some of you heard me tell this story about, we would go to movies, she would not let me pay, she would make me use the passes that her aides had, and you're supposed to show ID, so we go, and first couple of times no one asks us for ID, but
there comes a time when there was an usher who was more doing their job, and we both look at each other. My son is crazy about the icy, slushy things, right? So, and all the food they have there. So if I let go of his hand, he will go for that food. So we're both looking at each other. It's like, it's time to make the move. Just let go of his hand. And I'm like, I've got to run after my kid. So we did that because the ushers were different young people every single time. We did that quite a few times. The same movie theatre. But with Feda, you got away with a lot. And when Jan and Sarah were talking about the wild weekend in Capitola, wilder for some of us than others. I think Feda and I were the last to go to bed. And I'm sorry, I just found, I was looking at a message she sent me then, and this is, hard to see, but this is Feda on the floor. We may have been consuming some things outside on the balcony. Sorry, Jill. She paid for everything. Jill did pay for everything. Jill, of course, was the first one to go to sleep. So this is Feda outside Jill's room. I don't know. She was playing sexy music and trying to get. I don't. Do you remember? Were you fast asleep already? Oh, she was completely gone. It was just always a good time, and I was at that quinceanera birthday party with my kid as well, and it was amazing. Really, like, that was just one example of how you could, even when you had the responsibility of children that needed a lot of attention, she could still make it fun and get the right people together. So, but she also knew when to reach out when you were down. Like, I really don't know where she found the time, but she would call. She would make you feel better. You would have to take the call. As others have said, it was almost always FaceTime. And I'm like, I'm in bed. Give me some clothes on, let me whatever. It didn't matter to her. Of course, if I was anywhere near my children, I'd have to move away, even though they've heard me swear, but some of the things she would talk about was probably it's definitely not appropriate for tween years. And then, you know, like driving up here, and I wasn't here last year, but CuriOdyssey has special days for kids with special needs. And actually one of my favorite photos of my son with Muhammad is actually right here almost exactly a year ago, one of those days. They're just, you know, I think the magic was there because we got along really well together, and Muhammad and Jonathan got along together really well, and there's a couple of beautiful photos of them just like holding hands and looking at each other, and I was here almost exactly a year ago. I will just say at this birthday party, LaDonna mentioned the Catholic, the Southern Baptist, and the 3 Jews, but of those 3 Jews, one was an American Jew, but 2 of us were Israeli Jews. It was like, I mean, you could, you know, like those kind of things didn't matter to her. If you were a friend, she looked beyond whatever stereotype, and she broke all the stereotypes you might have about what you should expect from her. There's a lot of other things I could say, but I'll stop here.
I don't know. She just continues to be an inspiration, and all the stories are just so wonderful. Thank you to everybody. I don't know what to say. It's just such a loss. And being together is so healing. And thank you so much for sharing.
Feda, she and I met, gosh, I'm thinking back, I think it was maybe 3. And I recently became an advocate, which I still do. And she contacted me, I don't know how she got my name, and because the aide had dragged Mu down the hall of the school. And so she called me in, and I was new to this, and quickly things escalated. to the point that, you know, she really needed an attorney because we showed up at the IEP. And even though Feda had a great relationship with the special ed director, which was just amazing, you know, she made relationships with, making relationships is just like her gift with all sorts of people. So she already had a relationship with the special ed director, and we thought, well, you know, we're going to leverage this, we're going to make this work. Then we show up at the IEP and the aides there with a union representative, and so that was like, okay, well, we need to move on. And so I wasn't really involved in the case. She had actually, I think she ended up having to go through 2 attorneys to finally get to the one that would help her. You know, I don't know what Feda was like before that, but I just think that, like, with so many of us that have children with disabilities, that our love for our children, and I think this is Feda, just her love for her son has driven her to do amazing things. And I just think that she is such an example of the power of love. Like, the power of love is infinitely greater than the power of hate. And it's just the ripple effect of Feda and her love for her children and her love for our community. And I think that's the other piece of that we have, is this is our community. No matter, you know, what kind of, where our kids are on the spectrum, that this is our family, and that she, you know, she was like definitely the naughty aunt. Who would get your kids to do things and, like, don't tell your mom. So, you know, Feda, you know, I fully believe that everybody in our community will really do our utmost to carry on what Feda, her example that she left, but none of us will, you know. We're all going to fall short, but I know we're all going to try.
Dancing contest. This is reminding me of that. Well,
That was great.
Our friend Cheryl Simone, and who knows Cheryl? You know Cheryl. So she's one of those autism moms who's off the radar. She doesn't do any autism group stuff. She doesn't bring her son anywhere. She's not even on social media. And beautiful Cheryl was a 50-something pole dancer. And so we went to see her pole dancing recital. And you were there when they had the pole dancing contest.
First of all, you were pretty amazing too, Jill.
Feda won the first year. I won the second year. My back has never been the same. And Feda, this was all women at this pole dancing recital. She took off her headscarf.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And she was not a small person at that time.
No, that was Fat Feda.
That was Fat Feda. And she got on all fours to this, like, pulsing red light music. And, you know, just like tossing, and she put her leg up on the pole. And yeah, she won. There was no contest in that contest. So you didn't know that about Feda. She was a pole dancing champion. Yeah, Cheryl Simone.
When Jill invited me, and when I also got to know Sarah a little bit more and others of you on the Autism Society board. And I know this is the right setting to say this, but, you know, I feel a little bit like an imposter. I've kind of hung back in the back as well, partly because I didn't know Feda well, but I had the backup microphone for today in case this one failed. So I think Jill let me make the short list, so thank you. But also, my son doesn't have autism, he has cerebral palsy, but Feda kind of made me wish he did. And you all know what I'm talking about, right? Like, really, that, you know, there's nothing new I can say now about Feda that hasn't already been said, and I'm very moved by what all of you have said. And this is going to sound a little crazy too, but I have not slept since this happened. It's like, damn it, you know? And so I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit, but one of the meetings I came to, well, let me tell you, my first board meeting, I'll be short, but my very first one, Jill was, you know,
introducing, I think maybe a couple of us were new, and I got introduced, and and I live on a farm now, so I'm mostly dirty all the time and dusty, but I had my heels in my skirt still then, and I think we were only maybe approving the agenda, and this long line of explicatives comes out of Feda's mouth, and I'm thinking, and I kind of have my head down looking at the agenda, and I'm also introverted and shy. Some of you may not believe it, but it's true. And I'm looking around the room like, is this normal for this board? Like, do you start swearing like a sailor before you approve the agenda? And it was so amazing, and nobody thought anything was the least bit unusual. So I'm like, well, I'm going to like this group, and I'm going to like that woman who just did that, because I love that. And then, I don't know, half a dozen meetings later, I got stuck, like we all do, for care for my son. And I think I texted you, or I don't know what happened, and you were nice enough to let me bring Noah. So I bring Noah. Feda hadn't met him. He's in a wheelchair. And she immediately, right, before the meeting starts, goes up, wants to meet him, wants to talk to him. He's a big high-five guy, so she's high-fiving, fist-bumping, the whole bit. And she said, what's his name? I hadn't even, fully introduced him yet. I said, it's Noah. She said, oh, he's a Jew boy. Has he met my friend Jill? I said, yeah, my husband's Jewish. So, yeah, he is. I didn't know what to say to that. But, it was so refreshing over what you usually get, which is, what's wrong with your child, right? Which is what I had heard all the other years through his life. So anyway, I just want to say that Feda's life has moved me, the little bit I knew about her and Mu. I'm sorry my Noah didn't get to meet her Muhammad. My husband used to joke with me when we were expecting our second child, when we were trying to figure out a name, and our son is not verbal, but he could say a few sounds, and one of them was Ma, and one of them was Mu. And one was Mo. There were three. It was all the M's. So I was rooting for Matthew, and he was rooting for Muhammad. And I said, why would you do that? I don't get why you're... He goes, can you imagine if I was in the grocery store and I got to be the dad, the Jewish dad, who said, Noah, Muhammad, you two have to get along. Knock it off. And at one point, I got to tell Feda that story, even though we didn't know each other that well. But it's because of what you all have said, which is I kind of did know Feda well, right? Well enough to do that, and she me. And I'm just really eternally grateful and also in disbelief that this large life isn't here with us anymore. But I have to tell you, I feel like she is here with us. And it's a real privilege to hear all of your stories. And I wish I could vote for every one of you in a few weeks. Because the leadership, the compassion, the love that's here is really what we should all be about. And Feda so embodied that. So thank you for letting me be.
Thank you, Jill and Laurel, for doing this in honor of Feda. And Mu, Feda's classmate. We're going to miss him at the base school. And Feda was just a champion for everybody, the parents, the kids. She was a friend, and some of you may not know, but she was a nurse. When my son stopped eating, who was there at UCSF but Feda? She had a trick to help David eat. And I know it's hard to believe now as everybody's hearing him say hamburger and french fries. There was Feda, at 10 o'clock at night, or, really late after she had done her obligations to Mu. She was there with a bottle. She said, we're not putting a feeding tube in this kid, Susan. You're not, he can eat. I'll be there with you. We went through this with Mu, so she brought a hair bottle, a color bottle, and she, just proudly came and started feeding David, and sure enough, he was taking the formula, and she was encouraging me. I was asking her all kinds of questions. Why was this happening? And she was saying, Susan, it's okay, but this is, part of the journey, Susan. It's going to be okay. He's going to eat. He's going to get back to school. And with that encouragement, David did return to school, and
had many times with Mu and Feda, going to the school and encouraging all the kids and staff and parents. She was just a champion that I just can't believe she's not here anymore. And Mu, that we're not going to see our kids together in the same class and celebrate their victories and their journeys, the progress that they made. I mean, Feda was always there at the school doing nice things, and Mu was a part of everything. Always, doing his best and made a lot of progress, and we're just really going to miss them both, and are forever grateful for everything that Feda has done, including the ADA has really helped David a lot too in the home, and especially now that's where it is. It's in the home. We still need the help even during the pandemic. So we're going to carry on and continue to do good things, and are forever grateful to our champion, Feda and Mu, for all the progress that he made and the strong kid that he was and classmate of David's family.
When I think of the legacy Feda left behind her, I think of a person, and I know this personally, that challenged the norms of what we think we should just accept. Someone who asked questions and asked why, why should we be complacent or be okay with something that just doesn't feel we should be okay with. And I think if Feda wished anything for any of her friends is to challenge the world and say, what about you? What about us? What about that lonely female story that, we don't hear the backstory of, the story behind the hero? What people don't know about Feda, even though she did tremendous works of goodwill for not only our state, but all families that struggle, was fight against something that I guess just challenged the norms. I'm not at a loss of words because I'm very emotional. But what she was an artist behind the scenes as well that no one, I think, she didn't have the time either to express. And I just want women to realize their story and Feda. We all have that story in us. Every woman has the potential to be a hero and challenge the norms of what they struggle with in their personal lives and their world. So I thank you so much for loving my sister and showing her the love you have and being a support to her. I wish I had known you or met you before. It's such tragic news. But I'm sure you were the lights of her life. And I'm so proud to see that she's had such a great effect on so many beautiful people that care about supporting her. Thank you so much for being here, my sister.